We are in Parashat Balak, and as usual, the Torah has such deep and profound messages to us, and there's something that is kind of dominating in this week's parasha, that Balak and Bilam are trying to get rid of us. And when you're looking at the history of our nation, how many people tried to get rid of us? Pharaoh wanted to get rid of us, the Romans, the Greek, the Spanish Inquisition, Hitler Yimach Shemo. So how many people tried to Haman HaRasha. In history, Hashem Yerachem, as we say in the Leil Seder in Pesach, B'chol dor v'dor omdim aleinu lechalotenu. Every generation somebody's standing here looking to destroy us. But nevertheless, one of them, at least we can give him some extra points for being original and different. Everybody wanted to kill us either with weapons or any type of a way. In this week's parasha, we see that Balak also wanted to get rid of us, but not with a weapon, not with a genocide, not with anything else, rather with curses, with magic, with sorcery, and nobody ever tried to do that. Haman didn't try to do that with sorcery or curses. Everybody who wanted to destroy us was physically. Okay, maybe the Greeks wanted to convert us, but nevertheless, they didn't want to kill us. They just wanted us not to believe in Judaism. Here we're talking about somebody who wanted to annihilate us. Now, there are a few nations that want to annihilate us, so they're building nuclear bombs. Which, when you're thinking about it, how stupid they are, okay, so you'll drop a bomb on Israel, you killed a third of the nation. What are the Jews? There's Jews all over the world. It's where you see sometimes the stupidity, but nevertheless, Shem Yerachem, in this week's parasha, we meet a certain individual. His name is Balak ben Tzipor. Balak, the son of Tzipor, who's the king of Moab, and he goes and he hires Bilam to curse us. And he had a website, bilam.com. Balak went on Google, how do you destroy the Jewish nation? And Bilam's website popped up on the top. He did search engine optimization, and his website well, you need to destroy the Jews, call Bilam, 24/7. Anyways, of course these are all my additions, but Balak goes and hires Bilam to curse us. Now what's the result? It all turns out good. The curses become blessings, nothing happened, all turns out good. So, it was a Hollywood production, a good ending, the hero wins, and so forth. But of course, when you read the parasha, sometimes people just read it, and sometimes people start asking questions. And the first question that one might ask, that's what we want to focus on today, how come if Bilam and Balak was such a wicked individual, how come he gets a parasha named after him? There's no parasha called Abraham, and there's no parasha called Moshe, and there's no parasha called Yosef. But you're giving a wicked person that wanted to destroy us a name, a parasha after his name? That's the first question. The second question is, if you're already granting a wicked person a parasha after his name, why is it after Balak? Name it after Bilam. Bilam, you don't hear the name Balak throughout the parasha. He's just the one who hired Bilam. But the whole parasha, who we focus on? Bilam. Bilam is the one who Hashem talked to him. He's a prophet. He's the one who's doing everything. And call the parasha Bilam. Why are you calling the parasha Balak? And the reason why we're asking that, because usually the name of the parasha will hint on the entire theme of the entire parasha, and not on one detail. So with that rule, then the parasha should, at least, if it's named after a wicked person, should be called Bilam. Balak is just a minor detail here. Nevertheless, if you're looking at what's called the Pashtut, the simple explanation, because a lot of people look at the simple explanation and they move on. The simple explanation is why it's called Balak and not Bilam is because Balak was the one who hired Bilam. He's the one who gave the instructions. He's the one who conspired to do that. And therefore, Balak is more severe, so to say. He's the one who ordered the execution. He's the he initiated it. So since Balak is the more dangerous, so to say, because he's the one who started it, therefore that's why it's named after him. But okay, this is on the surface. And nevertheless, of course, we're still left with the question, why is the parasha named after a wicked person? If you're looking at it in a very simple way, one can say, oh, if the parasha is named after a wicked person, must be that there's some type of a hint or some type of a profound message behind the whole story. The parasha will not be called after a wicked person for nothing. But nevertheless, if you're looking a little bit more in depth into it, like I said many times, some people read the parasha and they just zoom through it and no questions, no nothing. Let me just read it. If you don't have questions, then something's weird here, because the Torah is never clear. How can you read the parasha and not ask questions? Nevertheless, when you're looking at the fact that Balak got a parasha named after him, one can learn from that something, that there must be something more good in him than something bad. Yeah, he's bad, he's evil. Up until today, we remember him as evil. He's a Hitler of 3,000 years ago, or Haman, or however you want to define him. But nevertheless, there's something in Balak that was more powerful, the positive, than the negative. And when you're really looking at Balak, he really gave us a very big present. And we didn't even ask for that present. We didn't know that we need this present. But when you want to look at the situation, Balak actually gave us the biggest gift we can ever get. And what is this gift that Balak gave us? He taught us that evil can actually be transformed to something good. And that something bad can actually lead you to something that is good. How many times something bad happens in your life, you think that the world is colliding. If you let the situation lead you, you actually see that the bad leads you to something very good. And there are many different explanations and a way to explain it. I'll give you one quick example what I mean. And this is, of course, in a much lower scale, but it will kind of emphasize what I'm trying to say. Many years ago, my son, he was maybe 2 years old, and we lived in an apartment that had a basement, and the stairs were very, very steep. One day, and I had a little office in the basement. One day, sitting and working, and he pushed like this little cart, and he went falling down the stairs. And he literally rolled down the stairs. When I saw that, I mean, you can't do something. I mean, it takes you a couple seconds just to react, to catch yourself. Anyways, I literally saw him rolling down the stairs, and when he got to the end of the stairs, and of course I ran to him, and then he kind of like got up and started crying. And the first thing I was looking to see if there's any blood. And no, wasn't any blood. So I started touching his head and to see, chas v'shalom, if there's any fracture. And he's crying, and I'm trying to calm him down. And as I'm going like this on his skull, I touch the back of his skull and I feel a bump, a weird bump. Now he was 2 years old, 2.5 years old, so he had long hair. He still didn't get his hair cut. So it was a lot of hair, but from touching the skull, I feel a bump in the back of the head. I move the hair. What do I see? I see a tick stuck in the back of his head. A tick stuck in the back of his head. And of course, we took the tick out and took care of it. But he was probably playing in the backyard, in the playground. And we lived in New York. The eastern seaboard is flooded with ticks. I'm going to now say how they got there. But nevertheless, that was some government experiment. But nevertheless, the eastern seaboard is full of ticks. Nevertheless, so he got a tick. Now, you know how dangerous that is? Yeah. A tick? I mean, people get Lyme disease from that. People can die. Nevertheless, of course, we took it to the doctor. Everything was good, Baruch Hashem, and nothing happened. So, and of course, my wife was besides herself, and I told her, look, the whole reason why he fell is for us to find the tick, because other than that, you will never feel it. It was in such a hidden place right behind here that even if you would wash the hair, there's so much hair, you wouldn't even feel it. So I said, look how something bad leads you to something good, and Be'etzem, it was all good. Nothing happened. Okay, it was a little bit bruised, he was a little bit shaken, but we found the tick. So this is a very small example of something that is bad can lead to something that is good, and this is in a very small scale. Sometimes it's in very large scales. Okay, so when you're looking at Balak, one can say, listen, this is a present that Balak gave us that we can realize and understand that from something bad can lead you to something good, and something evil can always be transformed into something positive. What's the highlight of the parasha that we see that something came from bad to good? We got a blessing from Balak and Bilam that we're going to get Mashiach. This is the parasha that says about the coming of Mashiach. Look what greater news you can get from that. Besides that, when you're looking at it, it's very, very interesting that Balak was the king of Moab, and Mashiach comes from Moab, because Mashiach comes from David, who comes from Ishai, who comes from Ruth, who comes from Moab, and nevertheless, you see a great connection here. Nevertheless, what do we learn from that? If you want to take the short version of the message of the parasha, that even evil forces and negative things that happen in our life, they have the ability and the potential to transform into something good. That's why our sages say, "En ra yored min hashamayim." Nothing evil or bad can happen in this world. So even when you're looking at bad things, there's something good there, and it comes to transform the bad into good. Okay, this is the great present that Balak gave us, and to give you one example, that's kind of what I want to focus on today. We have a certain partner in our system that is also called bad or evil, and that's the evil inclination. We have a Yetzer Hara. His name is Ra, and in English you call it the evil inclination. So you see something evil. So what, I have something evil in me? I have something bad in me? Yeah. He talks to me all day long. Don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. But if you're looking at the Yetzer Hara, he's always negative. The Yetzer Hara doesn't tell you to do anything positive, unless your Yetzer Hara is very sophisticated, and he tells you to do something positive because it's going to cause you to do something negative. But nevertheless, this Yetzer Hara always has what to say. He never sits quiet there. Sometimes you wish, just shut up. You don't have to say anything. But the Yetzer Hara is sitting right over here, and he always has what to say. Nevertheless, seemingly, the Yetzer Hara is the biggest enemy and the biggest evil, bad thing I have. If I don't have a Yetzer Hara, I will never sin. So seemingly, he's very bad. But nevertheless, the Yetzer Hara is actually the best thing that ever happened to us. It's the best thing what we can imagine. Without the Yetzer Hara, what would we do without a Yetzer Hara? Now really, when you're thinking about it, what's the role of the Yetzer Hara? Or even more than that, why would Hashem give me a Yetzer Hara? Hashem, you want me to do mitzvot? No? You said in the Torah that I have to do mitzvot. So why are you giving me an obstacle? Move away the obstacle, I will do mitzvot all day long. I don't have an issue with the mitzvot. I don't have an issue with Torah. It was up to me. I will only do mitzvot. So why are you putting me a stumbling block? Why did you create a Yetzer Hara? So we're left with the question that when we're looking at this evil force, one can say that it's bad. No, the Yetzer Hara is the best thing that ever happened to us. There's a reason. And now we want to know what's the role of the Yetzer Hara, and why would God create such a force that will cause me to do sins? And not only that, what is the agenda of the Yetzer Hara? To make me fail. The Yetzer Hara is not helping me succeed, rather the hell is helping me fail. What's the common sense here? Why would Hashem do such a thing? Why are you telling me to do mitzvot, and then you putting an obstacle in front of me? So we know, our sages explain that a person is being judged by his actions. That's something very basic and simple. Now, if we see a person that helps, how do we judge him? That he's a good person. If we see that a person is screaming or angry or does bad things, how do we judge him? That he's a bad person. That's how we judge. Whatever you will do, then people will judge you according to your actions. Now, does it make sense that God will create something that is complete evil? Doesn't make sense. God is good. God is here to benefit us and to give us and to nourish us. Why would God create something that is not good? What's the common sense here? So must be that there's something standing behind the Yetzer Hara. If Hashem already created it, and this is something that we all share, we all have this common denominator, must be that behind the Yetzer Hara there's some type of a message or some type of a secret that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is trying to tell us. And this week's parasha is what we focus on, is Dafka Balak. Now, if you want to look at the basic explanation, the Yetzer Hara is here to get the best out of us. I like calling the Yetzer Hara my personal trainer. If I will go now to a gym, I can pay top dollar to the best gym in the city, and I will get dressed to the occasion, and with a towel here and the whole show. I'll go to the gym. If I'm not motivated, I'm not going to do nothing there. I'm going to hang out and watch on the TV. Sometimes you see in the gym, they're watching the TV. Maybe I'll walk on the treadmill. That's not a workout. When do I work out? When I have a personal trainer that is pushing me to my limits. More, push, harder. So the Yetzer Hara is my personal trainer, and the Yetzer Hara is here to get the best and the most out of us. And he puts a challenge. If a person now it's summer vacation, then a lot of the kids, summer vacation, they stay home and they sleep till 11. There's nothing to do. They're bored. There's no challenge here of anything. So same thing here. If everything would be good, everything would be easy, what's the challenge? Why would I do anything? So to make the simple explanation, the Yetzer Hara is here only to get the best out of me. Now, the way to analyze it is if a person does something good, now I observe and I see a certain individual who does a good act. I have no idea why is he doing that. Maybe he has some agenda. Maybe he's actually a good person. Maybe that's how he was educated when in his home. Maybe there's something behind it. You're just looking at the situation. We are very judgmental. In most of the cases, our judgment is completely off. But nevertheless, we're judgmental. Very hard to find an individual that doesn't judge people or that judge people favorably. But just to take a scenario, I see now a person do something good. I can judge him favorably. Ooh, look what a nice person. Or I can judge him not favorably and say, of course he's doing that. He wants money. He wants fame, power, control. So our judgment is very misleading. But nevertheless, if we want to talk about in general, I see doing something good right now, not bad. Something good, I don't know what's the motive. And like I said, could be naturally a nice person. Or he Mehmet has an ulterior motive here. Or maybe that's how he was educated. Or whatever it is. Maybe it's his nature, or that maybe that's the custom of the place and so forth. So that's when I'm looking at somebody and I don't know what's going on over there. When I'm focusing on the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer allows me to see if a person is really connected to the Torah and really connected to good. If there wouldn't be a Yetzer Hara, how would I make a separation? The Yetzer Hara can actually tell me if I'm really connected to the Torah. And on the other hand, if I'm doing something good, if I'm really connected to good. Because a lot of people do good things, they're not connected to anything that is good. They're just doing it for a motive, or some type of an agenda, or money, or whatever it is. And like I said, it could be that it's a certain interest, or something temporary. I don't know. So this is on a very surface why we have a Yetzer Hara. But nevertheless, we want to understand a little bit more deeper why the Yetzer Hara and what I need to do with it. So there is a midrash that says that when Hashem finished creating the world is called Maaseh Bereshit, that Kadosh Baruch Hu took time out of his busy schedule and he created the world. And the last sentence, when Hashem completed everything, it says, Vayar Hashem et kol asher asa. Hashem saw everything that he created, and Vehine tov meod. And it was very good. This is after we read that everything that Hashem did, Vayar Hashem ki tov. Vayar Hashem ki tov. And Hashem saw, good. The only time he says twice ki tov was on Tuesday, and up until today, people say, Tuesday is Pa'amayim ki tov. It's double good. The majority of people don't even know why they're saying that. But in the Torah, if you see, on Tuesday, it says twice in the Torah, ki tov. It's good. But when Hashem finished everything, Vayar Hashem ki tov meod. Very good. Ooh, why tov meod? So, the Midrash says, what's tov meod? So the Midrash says, tov is the Yetzer Tov, and tov meod is the Yetzer Hara. That's what the Midrash says. That now, up until now, was only good. Now Hashem created also the Yetzer Hara, and He called him Tov Meod, very good. So the Yetzer Hara is called very good. Up until now, everything was good, but the Yetzer Hara got the title very good. So Hashem says and defines that the Yetzer Hara is very good. And really the world will not be able to sustain or do anything without the Yetzer Hara. So, and again, what's the thing to take from that? That the Yetzer Hara is here to get the best out of me. And not only to make me good, to make me very good. Sometimes a person is good at something, you would say, how did I do? You did good. Is that okay? No, I want you to do very good. That happens when you have a child. The child brings a test. How did I do? You did good, but next time I want you to do very good. So the Yetzer Hara is to get me from good to very good. That's why we have a Yetzer Hara. Now, very interestingly, everything that we say has to be sourced, has to be found in the text. So there is a parable or a story that the Zohar says, and interestingly, we talked before about the Baal Tanya. In the book of Tanya, this parable is used twice. Very interesting story that the Zohar says. And the Zohar says that there was once a king, and he only had one son. And the king was like, listen, this is the only son, which means at some point, he's the one who's taking over. So needless to say, he invested in the best education. Brought teachers from all over the world to teach him how to read, how to write, math, science, whatever, the art of war, everything. He invested the best of the best in this child. And at some point, when the child was a little bit older, 15, 16, the private tutor came to the king and says, listen, I'm sorry to tell you, but with all the great hopes that you had to this young man, I don't know if this is the one you want to put all your hopes in. The king, of course, doesn't understand what's going on, and the teacher says, listen, he's not going in the right direction. Yes, you invested in the best education, but he's kind of going a little bit off the path. He's hanging out with the wrong crowd, as they say. So the king, of course, was very sad, not only because that's his son, because he says, wait a minute, this is the person that has to take over. I have to make sure that I have a responsibility for the nation. The person that will take over, then he has to be the right individual to take over the land. So what does he do? So he goes and he hires a woman to seduce him and to see if he will jump on the opportunity or if he would be strong and control his desire and his urge. And the story goes on, the parable goes on. I usually tell this parable in regards to a different message, but nevertheless, that's what the king did. And the story goes a little bit on. It's a little bit less relevant, but the king wanted to see if the son will be strong and be able to control his desire or not. And that's what he did, hires a woman. We're not going to mention her profession, but nevertheless, he hires her to seduce him. Now, forget about now the story and the parable. I usually tell this parable in regards to the Yetzer Hara in our generation. that just to say that not going to be any questions, a lot of people say, why is the Yetzer Hara in our generation so ruthless? The Yetzer Hara in our generation is vicious. So going back to the same parable, the story that I was saying, is that the first woman that was hired didn't want to do the job. Because in one hand she says, if I'm going to do the job, I will seduce him. He will fail. And I have to do it. That's my job. The king hired me. But on the other hand, I don't want to be the one who's, because of me, the king's son fails. I don't want to be the one. So what does she do? She goes and hires another woman. And she tells her, here's a lot of money. Here's a man. Go and seduce him. And by the way, that's the king's son. So the second woman says, I don't want to know if I want to get my hands dirty with this thing. So she goes and hires another one. And the other one goes and hires another one. And by the time it gets to the 20th generation of the woman, the last one doesn't know that it's the prince. And she goes against him full force. That's the Yetzer Hara in our generation. The Yetzer Hara doesn't even know who hired it. The Yetzer Hara was hired by God to go and test us, to tempt us. And in our generation, the Yetzer Hara doesn't even know who we are. So it goes completely full force against us. That's when I usually try to explain why in our generation the desires and the lusts and the Yetzer Hara is so strong. That's the reason. But nevertheless, let's go back to the story. Forget about right now the message of the story and the story itself. Let's go jump out of the story right now, out of the parable. The king hires the woman to go and seduce the child. What's going on in the king's mind while this whole job is being done? Can you imagine him pacing in the room, backwards and forth? What is he going to do? What is my son going to do? Is he going to fail? Is he going to be strong? Just try to tap into the mind of the king in that story. Now, that causes a lot of stress, a lot of tension. Some people, there's a football game, they're all hyped up. Who's going to score? Who's going to score? So just try to tap into the mind of the king while he's sending this woman to tempt his son. And when you're thinking about it, the test is not there to make the son fail. This is not the agenda of the test. The agenda of the test is to see the real results of the capability of the child. That's what's behind the king's idea. He's not sending the woman to deliberately make the son fail. He's sending the woman to see what would be the result. I need to see who I'm dealing with here. That's really the main message of this story, or the parable, because the king was told by the teacher, by whatever, the psychiatrist or the social worker, that the kid is bad. He wanted to prove, no, he's not. The king wanted to prove to whoever came and said that the child is bad, no, I'm going to prove to you that my son is good. That therefore, when you go more in the story, it says that when the son hears, when the woman comes to the son doesn't fall for that trick. And of course, the king is very relieved. Oh Hashem, he was able to hold strong. And the second that he hears the message that the son was able to overcome his desire, then he writes right away his will. Why? Okay, now I know the son is good. So we see based on the Midrash that there's a test here that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is testing us. He wants to see how are we going to react. Hashem is not sending now the temptation or the Yetzer Hara to fail me. Hashem doesn't have an agenda to make me fail, but He wants to see the material. What's going to happen? How are you going to react? So I know I have an indication. And needless to say that when we pass the test, what pleasure we do to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So this is just one source in the Midrash, but there's also another source for this idea in the Torah. And let's go back in the time of the parashot into a parasha called Va'era. This week's, in that parasha, the Kadosh Baruch Hu is testing Avraham Avinu. After so many years of Avraham Avinu not having a child, finally he's sending Avraham Avinu a child, Yitzchak of course, and then what is the test? Go and put your son on the altar. This is a big test that Avraham Avinu has to go through. Now, is Hashem trying to make Avraham fail? Hashem had some type of agenda I'm going to now go against him and I'm going to make him fail. No, that wasn't Hashem's agenda. What was the story? If you read it, we actually read it every day for the ones who pray Shacharit. The whole parasha starts, Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ele. And it was after these words. What was going on there? Is that Avraham Avinu did circumcision. Needless to say, you do something good, right away there's going to be prosecution. You can't do something good without somebody coming into complaining. So Avraham Avinu did something good. And so the Satan, the devil, comes to Hashem and says, why you think he's so great? So what if he circumcised himself when he was 99 years old? Big deal. So Hashem says, what are you talking about? Hashem is telling the devil, what are you talking about? Look what he did. 99 years old. I told him to circumcise himself right away. He goes and does it, no questions. So the Satan says, big deal. Well, what's the big deal? So Hashem says, what are you saying? So the devil tells him, you know what, I guarantee to you that if you ask him to sacrifice his son, he won't do it. So Hashem says, oh yeah? My little Avrumi, whatever I tell him he's going to do. So the Satan says, oh yeah, you want to put a bet? You want to put your money where your mouth is? I bet you that if you tell him to sacrifice his son, he's not going to do it. And Hashem says, oh yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. And after this conversation, and Hashem told Avraham, go sacrifice your son. Why such a test? You really think that Hashem had an agenda to make Avraham fail? You think Hashem wanted to trick Avraham to sacrifice his son? No. He wanted to prove Avraham's power. He wanted to prove to everybody, including the devil himself, oh yeah? You doubting Avraham Avinu? I'll show you what he's capable. I'll show you what he's made out of. So that was the test. And interestingly, if you're looking at the text, it says, Kachna et bincha. Please take your child. Why are you saying please? You are God. Why are you giving a commandment right now? Say, take your child. Kach et bincha. Why it says kachna? Na means please. Hashem is begging Avraham Avinu, please, don't fail the test. I have my trust in you. I put all my money on you. In other words, please, don't embarrass me in public. Don't shame me. Please stand for the test. So, this is where we see again the purpose of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is not here against me. The Yetzer Hara is to get me to the best of me. If not, I will be so lazy. Without the Yetzer Hara, how would I grow? I would stay in the same place. I always use the same example. Not too long ago, somebody sent me a video of one of the greatest boxers in history, Mike Tyson, how he prepares for a fight, how he works out. And he's being tortured, so to say, sweating and picking things up and jumping, and the trainer is punching him, and that's how he become a world-class boxer. What do you think? If he'll make 3 push-ups and eat a Twinkie, he will get to be world-class? No, I have to work hard and sweat. That's Yetzer is my personal trainer. Now, more than that, there's another reason for the Yetzer Hara. If you go to the text in Tehillim, in the book of the Psalms of David, in Psalm 60, in verse 6, it says something very, very interesting. It says, Natata lere'echa, you have given to the ones who fear you, nes leitnoses, a miracle to kind of flag out. Now this is how I translate it, but the translation of the actual verse, you have given those who fear you trials. Why? With which to be tested, in order to beautify your behavior forever. That's what the verse says. This is Tehillim 60, verse 7. The word in Hebrew, nes, is a miracle. But that's the root of the word nisayon, a test. So what is really Hashem doing here? The Yetzer Hara is here to make me produce the most out of me. Now when you are proud of something, a person is climbing Mount Everest, what do they do when they reach to the top? They put a flag on. Lihitnoses, I don't know the word in English because the translation doesn't say that. a flag that goes like this. This is called litnoses. How do you call it?
Waves.
Waves? So when the flag, when you stick it on the top, it waves. In Hebrew, it's called litnoses. You have a big battleship, you have the flag on the top. Anything that you want to show might and pride and whatever, you put a flag on, and it's kind of... So when the Tehillim says, Natata lere'echa nes, you have given the ones who fear you a test. Why? That when you pass it, you put the flag and litnoses, and the flag is like, I did it. You know, my kids, when they come home from school, they have a sticker here. Because they were the best in class. They go like this, I have the sticker, I got today the gold sticker. Usually it's a blue one, today is the gold. This is Nestle Itnoses. So again, the Yetzer Hara, who comes and brings me the test, is only to produce the best out of me. And not only that, is to overcome the test and the desire, and then the best of the best will come out of me. Because most people, and saddeningly I can say, they're not even reaching 2-3% of their ability. They don't even know what type of potential they have. Most people, if they would know how much power they have inside, what potential they have inside, that would be 10 times, if not 100 times better. Most people, their power is oppressed in them. And you know why? Because in 3rd grade, the teacher told them they're a loser, and the father said, you're not good for nothing, and the mother says, I'm so disappointed in you, and so many other ways that the child is like, I'm a loser, I'm a nothing, and really the child has unbelievable potential. But nobody ever came and touched that potential and says, wow, you are amazing. Yeah, and then the child grows up and it's a person that is hiding from his own shadow. But a right educator knows how to build the person up. A right father, a child. There's nothing wrong with being upset at the child. But you need to know how to build the child up. Nevertheless, that's what the Yetzer Hara is to build us up and take us to a much, much higher level. Now, I want to tell another story or two to kind of emphasize what we're saying here about with the Yetzer Hara. There is a story in the Torah, and this is actually said, the story is said in the Zohar, and can also be found in a book called Sefer HaYashar for Rabbeinu Tam. And it's talking about 2 angels. I'm sure you have ever heard the term in English, excuse me for this bad term that I'm about to say, but sometimes people say go to hell, right? In Hebrew they don't say go to hell, they say lech la'azazel. That's a term in Hebrew for equivalent to go to hell. What's hell? I understand. You're telling me to go to hell. So it's Gehenom. But Azazel? What's Azazel? Go Google Maps Azazel. You're not going to find anything. So what's Azazel? So the story says that there were once 2 angels, and right before Hashem was about to destroy the world with a flood, with Noach, then these 2 angels came and said to Hashem, why are you so upset at these people? We told you that's what's going to end up with them. Because when the world was created, the angels came to Hashem and says, why are you creating this human? You know he's going to go and rebel against you. So Hashem says, oh yeah? You are so brave? Let's see you if you can hold this test. Yes, I put them in this world and I tested them and they failed. But you are somebody to talk. Let's see if you will be able to pass the test. So these 2 angels came down to this world. And what was the result? The 2 angels actually liked the women, and they went and sinned with the women to a point that they, so to say, gave over their wings. We don't want to be an angel. I want to stay here in this world with the women. So one of the angels' name was Uzzah, and the other one, his name was Azael. And the story says that Uzzah made tshuva, and Azael says, no, I don't want to do tshuva. So he went against Hashem. So what did Hashem did? Hashem take him and threw him behind the mountains of the darkness. That's what it's called. Zarak oto me'ever le'arei hachoshech. He threw him behind the mountains. And why? Because he didn't stand the test. So when we say Lech le'azazel, go to him. He's in the dark place of the universe. But why is that? Why is the story? Because Hashem gave him a test, and he didn't pass the test. So he, so to say, was punished. He was sent to a different place. This is one story how we see that there's a test and there's can be a negative result. But nevertheless, there's also a story in our history about something not similar, but a certain test. And we see what was the result when the person passed the test. So this is a story about a certain individual, and his name was Rabbi Yitzchak. He is a very famous rabbi because his son is the famous Rashi. Rashi, why is he called Rashi? Because his father is Yitzchak. So, nevertheless, this is the story about Rashi. I'm sure you heard about Rashi. Everybody who learns a little bit of Torah knows he's the most famous commentator on the Torah. So this Rabbi Yitzchak was unfortunately a very unlucky person, a shlemazel, whatever you want to call it. Nothing worked. Business didn't work. Nothing worked. Anything that he tried to do was a big failure. And to top all that, he didn't have kids. And one day he walks in the streets and he sees something shining on the ground. He goes down to pick it up, and what do you know? He finds an unbelievable gem, a priceless gem. And of course, he goes to the local jeweler. He shows him the gem. He says, "Oh, I've never seen such a thing. Looks like something very unique. I think you should travel to the big city to evaluate it." He goes to the big city, to the number one specialist. He looks at the rock. He says, "Yeah, you know what this rock is? Ooh, this is worth million and million and million." Overnight, he becomes the next rich person of the generation. And of course, right away, the news is out, newspapers, right away, that there's a certain Jew who was a poor person. Now he became very wealthy. At the time, the king of France heard about this story, and he says, "Oh, I want to buy this gem." So he sends his entourage to the father of Rashi, Rabbi Yitzchak, and they come and tell him, "Listen, the king wants to buy the gem from you. This is his offer." And of course, this is overnight, you win the lottery. And they tell him, he says, why does he want to buy this gem? So they tell him the king made a very big statue to put in his backyard, and the eyes are precious gems, and one eye missing a gem. And he wants to take this gem and put it in the eye of the statue. So he says, "No, I don't want to sell you the gem. I don't want my gem, or I don't want to get money from something that will go to idolatry or to something so vain, and I don't want to sell you the gem." So he started coming with all sorts of excuses. "No, it's not really for sale. I want to keep it for my kids. They told him, we didn't come to ask you. We came to tell you. Whether you want to give it or you don't want to give it, you're giving it." And they take him with the gem, and they take him to France. On the way, they go on a ship, and he doesn't know what to do. So one day, he stands on the, the deck of the ship, and he takes out the gem out of his pocket, and he's pretending to look at it, and whoop, he goes like that, and the gem falls into the water. Now the precious stone goes into the water. You can do whatever you want. You're not getting the gem. And of course, there's difference of opinions how the story ends. Some say that he actually was taken to the king, and the king compensated him for whatever. But nevertheless, can you imagine the test? You have a gem that you get overnight. You're a gazillionaire, and for your morals, you don't want to give it to a statue that become an idol. You throw it into the ocean. Just imagine who in his right mind would do such a thing. The Yetzer Hara will give you all the excuses why it's okay to sell the gem. I'll give 50% to charity, or whatever. The Yetzer Hara is the master. But he stood the test, and he threw the gem in the water. What was the result? He got a son after many, many years, and what a son! He got Rashi as his son. Wow. Nevertheless, they saw from Shamayim that he took on himself such a test and was able to do it, to pass it, and nevertheless he got such a prize. So we learn from that, and when I overpower my Yetzer Hara, this nisayon, this trial, then I can wave the flag and I did it. And it takes us to a point to understand why we have a Yetzer Hara and what are all these tests. Not only that, a very interesting approach is that the Yetzer Hara reminds the person about the good. Because when a person sins, he sees the bad, and the Yetzer Hara allows him to see what he didn't do and to recognize the good. This is what Shlomo Melech calls Yitron Haor Min HaChoshech, the advantage of light that comes out of darkness. If you take now a candle, go out now to the street, the sun is bright, you're not going to see the light of the candle. The candle will not do anything. But take the exact same candle into a dark basement, and you go into the basement, the candle lights up the entire basement. The light diminishes the darkness. Why? This is the advantage of light that comes from darkness. So really, the bad around me is causing me to work harder. If everything would be good, I wouldn't put any effort, any hard work, I would not grow, I would stay exactly where I am. So really the evil and the bad, the Yetzer Hara, is the best thing that ever happened to us. That's this present that Balak gave us to understand that the evil is actually good. And it's causing me to work harder and harder. And there's an example by our sages, a Chazal. I'm going to tell you quickly another story and we can end. There's a very famous story about a certain individual. His name is Rabbi Eliezer ben Dordaya. And this story can be found in Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 17. Very famous story, because it's a story about a Baal Tshuva. And he was the biggest sinner in the generation. At the time, he wasn't Rabbi Eliezer, he was Eliezer ben Dordaya. He had a Yetzer Hara, and he had a weakness with women. And he made a profession out of it. And he would go anywhere. He would cross the world if he would hear about a certain event or a party or whatever. I'm not going to get into too many details. The Talmud goes into details, but his Yetzer Hara was women, and he went and did all the most horrible sins in that department. One day somebody comes to him and tells him, Eliezer, en lecha tshuva. You will never be able to do tshuva. You are a lost case. Doesn't matter what you're going to do. You are literally a lost case. And that completely shook him. What? I don't have tshuva? Even the most wicked person has in the back of the mind, maybe one day I'll regret. Maybe one day I'll change. It shocked him so much that the Talmud says that he went, sat between two mountains, and he started crying. That's the story. I'm just going to say the story very, very briefly. He sat between two mountains and he started crying. And what does it say? Heaven and earth, Shamayim va'aretz, please cry on me and have mercy on me. Ask for mercy on me. So the Shamayim and Aretz, the heaven and the earth, answered him, if we're already crying, we'll cry on ourselves. We ask for mercy on ourselves. You? Why would we cry on you? So he says, the sun, please cry and have mercy and pray for mercy on me. Sun says the same thing. If I'm already crying and praying to the Master of the universe for mercy, I'll cry on myself. Why don't you? So he goes to the sun and the moon and the stars, all the great features of creation. Nevertheless, nobody wanted to pray on him. Nobody wanted to have mercy on him. And it says that, the story says that he came to the conclusion, Me'ata, now that I see that nobody's coming to my rescue or to my help, En hadavar talui el abi. It only depends on me. This is what Rabbi Elazar says, and the story says that he was crying and crying and crying and crying, and after an hour of crying, he was such in deep sorrow that his soul left his body. He died. And as he dies, comes a heavenly voice and says, Rabbi Elazar, you are now invited to the world to come. It says, Rabbi Elazar mezuman l'chayei olam haba. You bought your entire olam haba with your tshuva. You cried so much, 1 hour you died. And you have a place in the world to come. At the time, the head rabbi of the generation was the famous Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rebbe. And Rebbe said a famous quote that up until today we use it, Adam koneh et olamo b'sha'ah achat. A person can buy his entire olam haba in 1 hour. 1 hour of crying, 80 years of sin. 1 hour of real crying, you buy your olam haba. This is a famous quote. So what do we learn from that? That the thirst, the desire is enough to get you to the next level. That's why I said that the bad, it actually puts you in the right perspective. It shows you the good. How would you see, how would you recognize the good, or how would you be grateful for the good if you didn't see the bad? You have nothing to compare. So the bad is coming to show you, this is bad, now see how good the good is, to emphasize the good. So here we see with Rabbi Elazar ben Ordaya, the thirst, the desire to do tshuva is because he came to the worst of the worst. The greatest Baal Tshuvot is because they reached the bottom. There's nowhere else to go. And when you get to the rock bottom, that's when you see how good you can reach. Saying in other words, that the darkness gives the person the ability to see the advantage of light that comes out of darkness. If everything is good, what kind of equation? You can't see anything. You have to see the bad. So, to conclude, this comes to explain to us why the parasha was named Balak and not something else. Because Balak came to teach us something so profound and so powerful that from any type of bad, good can come out. He gave us the best present we ever got. Because how many times you are involved in bad situation and you don't see the end. You don't see what good is what just happened now. I could definitely avoid this in my life. What is Hashem trying to do here? But the more bad that I experience in my life is Hashem's way of saying to me, this is how good can come out of that. You don't see it maybe right now. But this is the present that Balak gave me. Nothing bad comes from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Only good can come out of it. Of course, it depends on me. I can sit in sorrow and cry and whine and complain. But if there's something good, that means that it's covering the ultimate potential. Therefore, the parasha is called after Balak. Why? Because he came to curse us, he came to annihilate us, he came to destroy us. What was the result? The ultimate blessing. The fact that the message that we got, you're going to be redeemed, Mashiach is going to come. So, just to conclude with one very profound message, is that most people fail in their life, in tasks, in their tests, in many other areas and fields, because they believe that the bad comes to make them fail. They don't understand that actually the bad is coming to make them stronger. So I'll repeat it again because I find that this message is really what we need to go by. Most people will fail because they believe that the bad, the evil, whatever is going on that is negative is coming to hurt them and make them fail. They don't realize that really the bad is coming to strengthen them. Therefore, we talked about it the other day, that the midah of emet, truth, is really the light. When you follow the truth, you see that is your guide, that is your light. And a little bit of light will diminish a lot of darkness.